Hey, if someone told me that he can tell me the next winning horse, I'll probably not believe him. But if he told me the winning horse 5 times in a row, then I might start thinking, hey, this guy knows his horses, or this person must be an insider. However, if this person told me the next winning horse, you know what I'm gonna do? I'll probably go all in on this horse. Now, what if I told you there is 2600-year-old prophecy that has foretold the future in advance? 5 world empires that ruled as superpowers, all in correct sequence. And now, there's going to be a major event that will change the whole world that this prophecy prophesies. So what is this metal man all about? Well, 2600 years ago, the ancient Babylonian Empire was like the USA of today. They were the most powerful nation at that time, and King Nebuchadnezzar was a young king who had just defeated the Assyrians and the Egyptians, the previous superpowers in the ancient world. At this point in time, his empire was this massive empire with massive wealth, unmatched by any other kingdom on earth. And our human tendency is, when you've accomplished something very significant in your life, you start to wonder what else is there in life. Am I going to continue being successful? Will I get sick at some point in time and die? Will someone else successfully carry on this great work that I've started? This evening, King Nebuchadnezzar was pondering on his bed, thinking about the future of his empire. Then he fell asleep. Now, up until this point in time, he had no need of any help from others, let alone the God of heaven. Everything he commanded was done by his subjects. And God of heaven, in an effort to reach this king, he decides to reveal the future to him through a dream. So Nebuchadnezzar has this dream, a tremendously impressive dream, which causes him to tremble and wake out of sleep. Now, in these days, dreams were regarded as very, very important. People thought that gods were communicating to them. And if the king had a dream, then that's it. It's the gods that wanted to tell him something very, very important. Interestingly though, God decides to supernaturally make Nebuchadnezzar forget his dream. Now think about this situation. So King Nebuchadnezzar thinks he has a dream, a very important dream, but he just cannot remember what it is. Kings of those days had many advisors around him, including many spiritual advisors, so-called those who claimed to have access to the spirit world and claimed to have the abilities to interpret these dreams. So King Nebuchadnezzar called all these magicians, astrologers, the learned wise men in his kingdom, and he demanded them to tell him what the dream was and the interpretation of the dream. But can another person know what someone else had dreamed? King Nebuchadnezzar's advisors and spiritual advisors said to him, "There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore, no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with the flesh." They demanded the king to tell them the dream so that they could interpret it for him. Nebuchadnezzar obviously was furious because it was the first time in his life that he had a problem which he could not solve on his own. As the king's advisors admitted, there was no one, not a single person on earth that could help him. And in our life's journey, we face situations where we feel so helpless. Have you ever had these moments? Did you know that those moments are the moments where you could cry out to God for help and actually experience the existence of God? Well, like many people today, King Nebuchadnezzar obviously didn't know anything about God of heaven. And in his temper tantrum, he decides to kill all those people who were useless in helping him. But in his kingdom was this God-fearing young Hebrew man named Daniel, who was carried there as a captive but made one of king's wise men in the kingdom. He wasn't present there when the king had gathered all these people, but the king's guards nevertheless came to kill him. What would you do if you had to die so unfairly like this? Like I said earlier, our crisis moments are the moments where God can deliver us from our troubles. He asked the captain of the king's guard, "Why is the decree from the king so urgent?" Then the captain explained the situation, and Daniel, having heard it, was so convinced that his God can help him to reveal the dream and the interpretation thereof. So he asks for some time for him to go and pray to his God. When his wish was granted, Daniel urgently gathered all his godly friends, and they knelt down to pray to God that they might know the dream and the interpretation of the dream. And the Bible says, the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. And with the dream and its interpretation, Daniel was brought to the king, and he started explaining to king the dream. Verse 26 of Daniel chapter 2 says, "The secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. And your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image, this great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you. And its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke it in pieces. And the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth." You can just imagine King Nebuchadnezzar's jaw dropping like this. As Daniel describes the dream, the flashbacks from his dreams started coming back to his mind. You know, when you've forgotten something really important and you're trying to remember what it was, have you had those moments? Have you had that experience? That aha moment? As Daniel is describing the head of fine gold, the chest and arms of silver, you can just imagine it's like Nebuchadnezzar's head. Are these images starting to coming back to him? And he's like, yes, that's it. Yes, that's what I saw. Yeah. What was after that? Oh, yes, that's right. That's it. That's how the dream ended. But then, what does it all mean? You see, now King Nebuchadnezzar was ready to listen and accept the interpretation because Daniel has proven that he had received a dream from his God. Daniel explains, "You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory, and wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler of them all. You are this head of gold, but after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth." So the interpretation is that Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon is the head of gold. Interestingly, ancient Babylon was famous for its gold. They had vast amount of gold. King Nebuchadnezzar even made a huge 27-meter golden statue, which is recorded in the next chapter. But then it said, after Babylon, another kingdom will arise, a kingdom corresponding to chest and arms of silver. Silver, of course, is an inferior metal to gold, lesser in value. What's interesting, though, is that it had two arms, and history tells us that it was the union of Medo-Persia that came and conquered the Babylonians. And silver was so abundant in their kingdom, they even taxed people with silver. Isn't it amazing? The chest and 2 arms of silver representing the union of these 2 nations is certainly a very fitting symbolism. When Medo-Persians came to conquer Babylon, the Babylonians did not worry too much because they had triple fortified walls to protect them, and these walls were 12 meters in height and wide enough to have 2 chariots run side by side. They also had plenty of food to last them more than 20 years, without having to go outside, that is. The river Euphrates was flowing right through it, right through the city, the city of Babylon, and it was a huge river, so they had no problem with water either. Inside the walls, the area was as big as Chicago today. Basically, it was an impossible city for the Medes and Persians to conquer. But as prophesied, when Cyrus the Great of Persia came, by God's providence, he was able to conquer it. We'll talk more about this later in the series. But then the prophecy said a 3rd kingdom of bronze would arise and take over. And who is this bronze kingdom? Well, history tells us that it was Alexander the Great, who came and conquered the then known world. And the Greeks, of course, used a lot of bronze in their weapons and armors. And Persian Empire was so massive, compared to them, Alexander's Greece was only a tiny kingdom. But it was on October 1st, 331 BC, at the plain of Gaugamela. Alexander had 50,000 men, and the Persians were anywhere between 120,000 to 250,000. But though heavily outnumbered, as prophesied, Alexander was victorious in this decisive battle. And from there on, he went on to conquer the whole then known world in just 8 short years. A Greek historian by the name of Arrian wrote, "I am persuaded that there is no nation, city, or people then in being where his name, that is Alexander's name, did not reach. For which reason, whatever origin he might boast of or claim to himself, there seems to me to have been some divine hand presiding over both his birth and his actions, in as much as no mortal on earth either excelled or equaled him." Just like the Metal-Man prophecy said, the kingdom of bronze, the Greeks, came and conquered the kingdom of silver, the Medo-Persians. However, the Metal-Man prophecy does not stop there. Daniel goes on to explain, "And the 4th kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. And it is undeniable in history that this kingdom is the iron monarchy of Rome." Rome came into the scene as a small city-state. Who would have thought the city-state on the Italian peninsula would subjugate all the Greek kingdoms that ruled the then known world? But they sure came to dominate the whole world. And for almost 7 centuries, they existed as a superpower in the then known world. Any tribes or nation that stood against them were broken in pieces, completely shattered, crushed as iron crushes everything. But then, the Metal-Man prophecy prophesied something very, very different. It said, there won't be another kingdom that comes to conquer Rome. Instead, it will be divided. Whereas you saw the feet and toes partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men. But they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And just like it was prophesied, the Iron Empire of Rome in AD 476 divided into 10 tribes, just like the 2 feet having 10 toes. And they have come to form the nations of Europe today. But here's what's really interesting. it was prophesied that in these divided nations, some would be strong and some would be weak. And history of Europe tells us that even to this day, this is still very true. For example, Germany, France, and England are very strong, whereas the other nations are not as strong. Some are very fragile. And also, it was prophesied that they would try to reunite back together. But just as iron does not mix with clay, they would not adhere to one another. Well, Charlemagne, Charles V, Louis XIV, Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm, Adolf Hitler, they all tried through military might to reunite Europe back into one. Some of these men even messed with the head of the statue of Daniel, the prophet, at the cathedral in France to challenge God to say, I defy the prophecy given in Daniel 2. However, every time these men failed, some of them came very, very close to succeeding. But a strange turn of events caused them to fail, whether it was the heavy rain on the decisive battle day for Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo, or the harsh winter of Russia that broke Hitler's army from advancing further into Russia. What was prophesied in Meadowman prophecy was proven true over and over. It was also prophesied they will mingle with the seed of men. In history, the kings of Europe have tried to reunite back together through intermarriage of different monarchies. But they haven't been very successful in this method either. Due to inbreeding, so much inbreeding, the members of Habsburg dynasty of Spain and Austria have even developed this genetic problem, such as Habsburg jaw. They sure mingled with the seed of men, but just as iron does not mix with clay, their attempts to reunite Europe have failed. Will European Union succeed this time? I don't think so. Today, we're still living in this divided kingdom stage of the Meadowman prophecy, undoubtedly at the very tip of the toes. But then, there will be a massive event that will turn the whole world upside down. Well, what is this event, you may ask? This is what is prophesied. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it break in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation is sure. After hearing this interpretation, King Nebuchadnezzar praises the God of heaven. Truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal the secrets. And indeed, if you've been following everything that was said in this short video, the God of the Bible is indeed a revealer of secrets, because everything that he has foretold has come to pass. The head of gold, the Babylon, the arms and chest of silver, Medo-Persia, the belly and thighs of bronze, the Greeks, then the legs of iron, the iron monarchy of Rome, then the feet of iron and clay, the divided Rome, which today is still divided as the nations of Europe. That's 5 out of 6 so far. And with the 6th event just awaiting to happen, the rock that was cut out without hands comes to destroy all the worldly kingdoms and nations. I don't know if you've noticed, in our world, whatever man tries to do to set up something great, a man-made utopia, has always failed and resulted in pain, suffering, and disasters in the end. There's no hope in human devising. But it is prophesied that in the days of these kings, God will set up an everlasting kingdom. And Bible says this kingdom is of eternal joy, happiness, and peace. And that it will begin with the second coming of Jesus Christ, which will soon take place. And I'm personally betting my whole life on the fulfillment of this prophecy. because it has been so accurately fulfilled so far. The God of heaven is indeed in control of this earth history. Even when everything seems out of control, we can be assured that God is still in control, and He will eventually eradicate evil from this planet, as He has promised in the Bible. In Nahum, He makes this promise: "What do you imagine against the Lord? He will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise the second time." When God puts an end to sin and suffering on this planet, there will never be evil again in this universe. But that's not all. There are more prophecies in the Bible that have foretold the history in very detailed manner. Prophecies that have been fulfilled up until today, and they also foretell regarding our future. Very detailed prophecies as to what will actually happen before Jesus returns. Don't you want to find out more? If it is so certain that these events will come to pass in our lifetime, don't you want to know who this God is that is reaching out to you through this video? Don't you want to know why He's wanting to reach out to you? I hope you will join me in our next episode as we delve more into what the Bible has to say to us about the future and about the God who wants to connect with you and me. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, God bless you and keep you.